Well, looking back, you kind of got a sense that this could be an unusual day in Washington, not just because of the Electoral College certification process, but also because of the size of the crowd of Trump supporters in Washington and the rhetoric of their champion, the president. It was possibly the last big rally of his presidency, and he chose to laden it with familiar grievances.
We've amassed overwhelming evidence about a fake election. Do you know what the world says about us now? They said we don't have free and fair elections.
After warning his vice president, Mike Pence, to award him the election he lost by 7 million votes, something Pence has no power to do, the president said he will never concede and never give up, and he exhorted his followers to march on the Capitol. But while the president watched from the safety of the White House, the crowd turned violent, clashing with Capitol Police and storming both chambers of Congress. President-elect Biden felt the need to condemn it.
This is not dissent. It's disorder. It's chaos. It borders on sedition. And it must end now. I call on this mob to pull back and allow the work of democracy to go forward.
And he made one more request.
I call on President Trump to go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege.
Minutes later, the president added more falsehoods to a video that included a call for calm.
I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace.
It wasn't long before Twitter and Facebook removed that video, explaining it could incite more violence all by itself. But the president was not chastened. And earlier tonight, he was back on Twitter, sounding understanding about the day's violence. These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. Well, after that, Twitter locked the president's account for the next 12 hours, and Facebook locked it for 24 more.
So not just the fallout in terms of halting the process, now social media fallout, fearing that of what potentially could be incited as we go through this.
Right. And there's a ton of stuff on Facebook right now that Facebook is having to scrub. Calls for more protests tomorrow, talking about ammunition, things like that, that they're now going through and excising from their feed.
Dean, how do Republicans move forward from this? Because leading up to today, it seems like, and even to this point tonight, after what happened, there are Republicans who think this election still was stolen, and there are others like Mitt Romney who said we need to do ourselves all a favor and say essentially that the truth is here, Joe Biden won this election. How do Republicans reconcile this moving forward?
Well, there's a lot of talk about a third party, that the split within the Republican Party is irrevocable, that there ought to be a conservative party. If you listen to some voices of like the never Trump Republicans, they say they've had it with their party, that you cannot put the pieces back together. It is going to be a very interesting reconstruction of the party, if any of them try to do that, because they are so dependent on the base of support that is totally devoted to President Trump. And without them, they can't win any election.
And is that devotion at all shaken by the events of today or his being out of power in 2 weeks? Is there anything that shakes the tree where they go, this is enough, I can't continue to ride this ride anymore? Or is the devotion, no matter the storm, they weather it and move on to the next?
I just cannot believe, and I hesitate to say this, but I cannot believe this is going to help Trump's image going forward with his base or with the rest of the Republican Party.